Alina, this book is something else. Every she's saying, she's saying that the things that that stand out to you, the things that you want to repeat, and all of these things into your life. Listen, everything I
Everything
read so
stands
far.
out.
So I break it down into portions that I can manage.
This really was transformative.
Hi guys, are you all hearing me?
Hearing you loud and
Yes,
clear.
Great, except somehow I'm on the wrong camera. But welcome and good evening anyway. I'm gonna get my computer system switched off on me. But guys, welcome. Hi, this is Book Club Conversation. Super excited to have you in with us. I think I should face this way. I'm in this camera. Hey,
Yes,
hi.
great.
We are in book club conversation this evening. My name is Alina Lewis, and I'm here representing Launchpad Consultancy as we partner with Vision Work Solutions to bring us book club conversations series 6. And in this series, we're discussing the book The Uncommon Achiever by Mike Murdock, as he really takes us through a journey to understand the principles we should be engaging in our lives and our everyday experience to be able to take things to another level, settle ourselves down, understand the do's and don'ts, the best practice approaches. So I am excited to be here with you guys live in studio and the achievers who come out online live with us. So let me introduce. We have, of course, Roll Rollocks, impact strategist here at Vision Work Solutions. Hear me here at. But listen, I'm so proud to be partnering. You swear we here in the studio together. I'm saying here at. But we have Roll Rollocks, impact strategist at Vision Works. We have Sherlyn Mitchell. She is the co-founder, the founder of Tema International and Just Towels, doing some awesome work with widows, widowers, the vulnerable in society, and so many more. And we have joining us for the first time this evening, Varun Naidu, who is a young and upcoming entrepreneur doing great work in the retail sector, where he's really challenging himself to be that uncommon achiever. So, guys, welcome. We're here. We're on day number 28.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
Thank
And so
you.
I really want to welcome you. And day 28, we're talking about staying aware of the unspoken agenda of others. And I always love to ask, and I want to start off by asking Roll. Roll, can you tell me what stood out to you the most in this chapter?
Good evening, all fellow panelists. Good evening, all those that are listening in. Always a pleasure to be here to share some of what we've gathered, and understand. I mean, we are sharing from our life, our experience, as we read the chapter, we try to relate it to our own personal experience to make this real. So, I mean, I know there are others who want to come on, they want to be here, and they're intimidated by the camera. Come on, man. Come on. Just join us. Just come in studio. We'll be happy to have you. Now, this particular chapter was a short one. And for me, what I zoomed in on was the importance of respect, right? The importance of respecting individuals as a whole, individuals' time and the resources and everything that they're putting into what they have to do. When we connect with them, we must appreciate what they have done to accomplish where they are today and the time that it takes for them to do so every day. So I started to reflect on my days when I was in sales, and there's a mantra we have in sales that says always need to seek permission to invade. You don't just jump into a person's time, and begin talking and going off on your own agenda. You're always conscious of where that person is at, emotionally, physically, mentally. What is their state? You don't just jump into their space and begin to demand from them. So we have this thing where we normally ask, is this a good time? Of course, in sales, we need to tie them in. So we normally ask them, would 8 o'clock fine, or would 6:30 be better? Or because we want to seek permission to invade. And even when we're in the conversation, and let's say you did ask for about a 5 minutes, and the 5 minutes has elapsed, what you then do is, listen, we've come in close to the 5 minutes. I know your time is very important and very valuable. Can we talk for another 5 minutes, or would you like to meet another time? So there was always this whole effort of of showing and demonstrating to them that you care about their time and that their time is important. So this whole idea of respecting the individuals around us, I find is very important, and that's jumped out at me.
Yeah. Shirley, what about you? What stood out to you as you consider the readings of chapter 28?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much again. I'm glad to be in this space once again. It's so uplifting, and for me, what jumped out at me, I have two things written down. Always make sure your time with someone is appropriate for their schedule. So, like Roll,
Ah,
that jumped out to me because I don't know if I'm so much of a talker, but it seems like I am. And so to be, sensitive to others is what I think is really important for me to be able to grow in my relationships with others. So that jumped out to me. So, and then when he used the word respect, this one also jumped out to me. Those who do not respect your time will not respect your wisdom either. I said, Lord, sometimes you want to share things with people, but they take you for granted. They take your time for granted. You say you're meeting at a particular time, and what happens? They show up and they don't even call.
mhm.
And when if they can't just do a simple thing like that, sometimes you serve in different capacities, and if people don't respect your time, a simple thing like that, it was interesting for me to realize that. What do you think? They will have time to respect what you're sharing?
Yeah.
If time is, and that's what the authors also brought up, the factor of time being so important, and especially in this season. I don't know about you all, but I think the clock has changed. It is no longer 24 hours, or I don't know, but something is happening. Because to me, like I just started this morning at about 4 this morning. And now it's 8 o'clock, but 8:10. So something definitely is happening with time. So I think even more now, I think while it is still there, we should be very conscious of our time and then
Yeah.
respecting other people's time. So that really stood out for me in this chapter.
Yeah, thank you, Shirley. And Varun, tell me, even as you got into chapter 28, what would have stood out to you in this chapter?
Well, as everyone said before, that is what I noticed in the chapter itself, right? So that excuse I'm a bit nervous. So
Yes, mhm.
yeah, so the importance of yeah, so the importance of respecting someone and respecting someone's time. Um, that is what I got off the little small short time I got a chance to read the chapter and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And what I noticed that a lot of people out there don't respect you as a person. They doesn't respect your time, and they will try. They wouldn't. It doesn't matter to them what you're going through or what you have to do at that current time. They would make sure and make themselves the only person important at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah.
is so
So that's
true.
so, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so
And
true. And I want to piggyback off of that if I could, because Rune is bringing up a
mhm.
really good point that sometimes as we're going through both personally and professionally, we realize we come into contact with people that just seem to have no regard for what you're going through. Are you having a personal issue right now?
Yes,
Are you having
yes.
a business challenge right now? Varun is quite right in
Yes.
what he's saying. But even as we continue along, for those and high achievers, those who are joining on, we're glad always to have you. But even as we think about people who treat us in this way, that they're not giving regard to our personal or professional ins and outs, the ebbs and flows, the things that you have to deal with. Do you all have any best practice approaches, recommendations, ideas to share, because we don't want to burn bridges. We read about that earlier. Be gentle when we close doors, make sure to treat people with levels of respect. But at the same time, we too need to be respected. So, Raw, let me put you in the front seat. What would you recommend as the better way to handle those types of experiences?
Yeah, as I listened to what Shirlene shared and Varun shared, it came to me that maybe this is a cultural thing. You know, I don't know if we, as a professional, and when I say a professional, I don't mean a professional with a shirt and tie. I mean, if you're serious about whatever is your craft, whether you're a welder, you understand, you're a craftsman, whatever it is, your time is important. And we see, where we see this happen a lot, when you have to give an estimate for a job, all right? Nobody in Trinidad and Tobago likes to pay for an estimate because somehow they assume that estimates just fall out of the sky. You understand? But they don't realize that you have to go research, you have to make calls. It takes time, and depending on the size of the project that you're handling, if you're a builder and you're handling a big, an estimate can take you a month or more, right? But you cannot say, listen, this is the price of my estimate. So one of the things definitely that a lot of professionals have learned to do is to hide that cost, the cost of that time, in their proposal. so some of them can't put it in, but they will build that into the price. But I will say where it really begins for me is to start respecting myself and my own time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think as I respect myself and my time, other persons, my language begins to change. You understand? How I engage people begins to change. And people begin to make adjustments. You understand? So I think beginning with respecting yourself and putting value on your work, putting value on your time, and even on a personal level as well. You understand?
Yeah.
It's where it begins. And then I guess for me, what I've had to do is to anticipate certain things. So up front, I will give people a sense of what is required for me to do my job. I'll give you an example. One of the things I'm a trainer. So sometimes I provide training. So when I meet with someone, I get them to understand, well, if I am to provide this training, I need to do some sort of assessment. An assessment can take X amount of hours, and this is what's involved. So by the time I'm finished, they have a very clear idea that this is something that will take time, and likely they're going to see a cost attached to it. And that's really just an assessment. So I think beginning with respecting your time and then beginning to communicate the value of the work to help people understand, because sometimes people assume and they don't really understand your profession and what it takes for you to do your job, and you have to make them aware of it. So that's where I will begin.
I'm glad you mentioned communication there, role, because even as I was listening to you, I was thinking that is the indirect foundation behind that as well. Really learning how to communicate with others is a huge part of being able to have this respectful relationship. But even as you were talking, you know what came back to me? I remember years ago, I read a book called Pulling Your Own Strings. And in that book, the author said, I think it was Ian Van Zandt, but I'm not so sure. But I know for sure the name of the book was Pulling Your Own Strings. And in that book, the author said, people only treat you the way you allow them to treat you. And I remember reading about that, and it has stayed with me, because a lot of time when it comes to respect in relationships and so on, we sometimes could take on a victim mentality if we're not paying attention. And, oh, look how they're treating me. Why this and why that? But when I read about that in the book, Pulling Your Own Strings, and the author is saying people cannot treat you any particular way unless you have allowed it. And you can allow it by what you say. You can allow it by what you don't say. You can allow it by what you do. You allow it by what you don't do. But we ought to be mindful. We are in the driver's seat. And for as long as we're mindful for that, it keeps us from getting into that victim mode of, oh my God, look how this person is treating me. I don't know why, how, when, what, how. No, we get to come out of that. But I really want to connect with Paula, girlfriend Paula, Achiever Paula, join us. Oh gosh, Paula, in a long I didn't see you, girl. We miss you. Paula is sharing with us, and she says, those who do not respect your time will not respect your wisdom either. This impacted me, yes, and Shirley touched on this. And Paula also shared, in addition to it being a cultural thing, because we all spoke on that, and Paula is sharing that she has found that in ministry, it's been taken for granted. Wow. It can almost feel like because you're doing God's work, you should be available 24/7. And I guess maybe we could connect that to the idea of pulling your own strings, as I mentioned, where we recognize that what we say, do, don't do influences how people treat us.
Yes.
We could reconnect that to what Roll was saying about communication, because on one hand, while it can be cultural, when we are clear in our communication about what our boundaries are or how we prefer to handle certain situations, it might help ease some of those challenges.
Could I give a little story?
Yeah, sure, go right
But wait
ahead.
now.
No?
I wanted to get in this conversation. Since from before you asked Roy about, look, I can't even remember. You all made me experience senior moments. But Roy, can you hold that thought?
Go ahead, Shirley. Go ahead.
Because I wanted to say that this caused some serious introspection for me as an individual, and how I would listen to others, how I would give ear to others, and in turn, what am I getting back? And now Alina just felt another big stone by saying what you just said there. The whole thing of it is really, really being able to appreciate what others have to contribute as well. But more so giving that ear too, because sometimes so much could be happening with you, and it could be you, especially like if you're a mentee, and sometimes the mentee comes, but you're the mentor and you're going on and on. So I really looked at that. So I just wanted to get that in there, okay? So I can sit back now. Sorry.
That's fine. And that's why we're here. You'll interject as much as you can, because it is a convo. But roll back to your example.
Varun, anything you want to share before?
No, I'm fine. So you have the floor. You can go ahead.
You were talking earlier about, and each of you mentioned it in different ways, you were talking about the things you say, the things you don't say, the things you do, the things you don't do, right? And I remember I had a little experience with a plumber once, right? And this is a perfect example of sometimes you don't have to even say anything just by your action. So I had a problem with a toilet tank. So I decided, okay, I'll get a plumber. So somebody said, hey, this guy is a good plumber, get this plumber. Now, from the time the guy picked up the phone, I realized, because he was polite, he was professional, he was articulate, you understand? So you realize that, because, sometimes on our minds, we have this bias, we have this image of what a workman should sound like or look like, you understand? So he said, he spoke very politely, said, I'm going to be there at such and such a time. This is what my business entails. This is what, this is how I do my work. This is the time. And I was like, okay. So then it was time to meet this plumber. So he comes 20 minutes before time, and he's there. I can see the vehicle. And Varun and Alina, this guy's vehicle is shining. His toolbox where he has his tools is shining, like if he just shine it. You understand? He walks in with his shirt, and if you see how he'll walk, he looks like he's working in an office somewhere. Well, his boots, everything is on point. I said, Maya, I'm going to spend some money here today, boy. So then he comes into the home, he looks, he comments, he makes good rapport. Then he gets to the toilet tank, and listen to me. He cleaned up. When he was finished, the space was better than how we met it. You understand? And I'm just giving an example of how, by just how we operated, you understand? it encouraged me to deal with him a certain way. You understand? Because he dealt with a certain standard. So I just want to say that just by how you operate, just by the standard you set, can also help in terms of getting that respect that you need for whatever work that you do. All right. If you decide to be
Totally.
that uncommon plumber, that uncommon mason, that uncommon professional, you will find more likely people will treat you a little differently. So I just thought I will add that in.
Oh, definitely. It's almost like we go back to the sayings, when they do career days with the young people and we're trying to get them to understand how to position themselves to get into the workforce. We tell them things like dress as you would like to be addressed and these
Yes,
kind of little
yes,
cliches that we
yes.
use.
Yes.
But the principle behind it really does hold true, that when it is we are coming out to say, hey, we want to make sure people are able to receive us in a particular way, then we have to understand how we need to position ourselves. So, we had to take a little pause because Shirley is now finally complete. Shirley has been showing up for 3 weeks only as half. She's been showing up incomplete. So now we have all of Shirley in studio with us. So Shirley,
Sorry, I have
let
to
us
correct
allow
you,
you
ma'am.
to introduce your next half that is now making you complete on the program here.
Well, I have to say, first and foremost, I am complete in Christ. However, this is my rib here. Bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Mr. David
Yes.
Berman, say good evening to the viewers and those on the panel here.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, sir. Thank you
Good
for
evening.
Evening.
Hello, David.
joining. We're happy to have you and feel free to jump in at any time. Yes. So yeah, roll quite true. And I just really wanted to, even as we continue the convo, I want to make mention that Mike Murdock, he said something, and he said, always make sure that your time with someone is appropriate for their schedule. So even as we consider that, I want to ask the question, what tips, what approach do you typically take that you could share and that may be of value to those in studio and those viewing live, that says, this is how I position myself to make sure that I'm being appropriate, I'm sharing myself appropriately so I could get the best out of my relationships. Rolly at the top of my screen, so let me volunteer you to jump in first now.
Yeah, I don't know if I capture the essence of the question, though. Could you run it by me again?
Of course. Mike Murdock said we should always make sure that our time is appropriate for their schedule. So what tips do you keep in mind to make sure that you are able to ensure that your time with people is always
Oh,
appropriate
for
for their
this, for the
schedule,
other. Okay,
for
okay.
the other person's
Right.
schedule? Yeah.
Yes, I got it. Well, I will go back to what I started, what I shared earlier, right? The concept of permission to invade, right? Is a technique we learned in sales, because what it's really saying is that once you go beyond a certain point, you're invading on a person's time. You understand? You're invading on what's important to them, because they would have set a particular time to a conversation, or to you coming into their space, and you can't overstay your welcome. In other words, all right. So always ask about that. Always ask if this is a good time. All right, and if the time has elapsed, I know the time has elapsed. Do you have another 5 minutes, or can we talk another time? So to always pay respect, or pay due, you understand, to that person's time and energy and focus. Always seek permission to invade. So that's one of the techniques that I do. And certainly in terms of my own preparation, I would make sure that I am also prepared. You understand? So that if I'm going to connect with someone, as much as possible, I try to have an agenda, you know,
Yeah.
especially with somebody who's new and they're not really someone I don't work with often. I try often to have an agenda. That way, it's very clear to them what we are going to cover. It helps me to use my time better as well, because everything is well laid out. It helps them to prepare. It helps me to prepare, and we get the best out of the time, that we have to meet for. So as much as we can do before we connect with people to prepare for the meeting, I think also helps as well.
I want to, while you're center screen roll, I want to ask you, Mike Murdock also said that we should always mark those who show disregard or disrespect for our time. When you come across these circumstances, how do you handle that? What are your best practice go-to for handling those types of experiences?
Well, I guess it will depend on the experience and the severity of it. Um, Typically the way in which I operate, I operate like the plumber. You understand? So that already is a kind of sets the tone. So if somebody is going to treat with me, you understand? They really have to really not care. You understand? And if it does come to that, which I have to say has been rare, you understand? If it does come to that, I kindly remind them of my schedule and my time, you understand? And what I can do and what I can't do. Very politely, you understand? Listen, I can only stay 5 more minutes, We've extended the time that I've allotted for this. I have something else coming up. And of course, helping them to understand time too, because it means that if I go over, then I will impact someone else, So to keep everyone respected, let's hold to the time. So I bring it up in the conversation very politely, very clearly, that they understand. Now sometimes I can also take in front, just by the way someone is approaching me. I could begin to make that adjustment early in the conversation. Because if I realize that you're disorganized and you're not well structured and you don't seem to want to get to the point, then I drive it home. You understand? So I kind of help guide you along the way, or kind of guide you out of my space, if for want of a better word. So those are the kind of techniques that I've used.
Yeah. And Varun, let me switch to you now. When you
No problem.
consider, as a budding entrepreneur, when you consider experiences that I'm sure you have had where people may disrespect or disregard your time, how do you handle that experience?
Well, I totally agree with what Roll is saying, but what I'll try to do also is try to give them not by saying it, but by my body language, that's showing them that my time is precious also, and I'll try to let them know that they should change their ways and try to be a little more similar to what I am doing. If you understand what I'm saying, so like
Yeah.
try to give them an idea how to what they're doing is wrong, and how and how to so they could see me as a prime example, to be able to understand how to excuse a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit nervous, right? But
That's okay. You go ahead and chat, man.
yes,
But you're saying you
so
use your
try to give
body
them an idea
language. Mm-hmm.
how to adjust their time. I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm not going to like sigh and roll my eyes and look away. But I will try to let them know that here, what you're doing is wrong, and you should be able to have more understanding. The same way I have understanding of your time, you should be able to have understanding of my time. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
hopefully in the long run, it will help them benefit, and they will not be, like that same person that they were, and could
Yes.
end up being a little more better as a human being in the long run. I know I'm rambling, but I'm just trying to have all these ideas I'm trying to say right now.
No,
But
actually, you're
that is it.
not, because what I'm hearing you
Good
say
point.
is
Good
that
point.
you use both direct and indirect approaches. Directly, you let people know, here, what, I don't like this, and you shouldn't treat me like this. And indirectly, you let your body language speak and you blend between the two. So, actually, no, you're not rambling. You're making a very valid point, because there are many people who are not able to be direct even in those circumstances. But let's bring on the team. Guys, let's hear from you. When you think about instances where people show disregard and disrespect for your time, how do you all handle that? What are your best case practices, best approaches for dealing with those types of experiences?
Um, each case is different. You hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
So I'm saying that to me, Each case is different. I have heard what you all said and what you all have said, and that and I'm perceiving that we are dealing with client or client to be, and even though sometimes we may not like how we are treated, but I follow the biblical mandate. I have to be wise, and I have to be tactful with how I'm dealing with that particular person. As I said, each case is individual. So we cannot take a cash blunt approach. I go deal with them that way. We have to be sensitive, we have to be caring, we have to be loving. And there's a word called tact, T-A-C-T. Just know how to use that and go along.
Great.
I love that. Shirley, any complimentary contributions there?
I have to say, like Varun, this thought came back to me this afternoon, right? As I was preparing myself. Some years ago, I asked the Lord this question: what makes a man a man? And I waited 5 days for the answer. And when I got back the answer, he said to me, his word. So that if I said to you, Alina, I'm going to meet you for 2 o'clock, and I don't show up, it means therefore that I am not a man to my word. Many persons gave me examples of you have to be humble and you need to be this way and you need to be that way, But if greater God has exalted his word above his name. And so if you tell me that you are doing this and we are connecting at this time and you don't, that thought came back to me, so that then it tells me something, how far I can go in this relationship, because you are not someone to your word. And then I also remembered when you were speaking before, I have really learned, and I'm still learning. On Sunday evening when I was last on, after the session, I went inside and I began looking at my brother Rawls' page, Vision Words, because he picked me up and said, Shirley, I've been looking on at you. And I took time out to follow my brother in that capacity of Vision Words. I also went on to Alina's page too, and I was viewing, and then some of the other guests as well. And I said, it's so great to be able to appreciate what each other is doing. So for me, growing and taking time, really taking time to be listening and not allowing my thoughts to go all over, because for me, people call me and they say, Shirley, I just had to try the right time to, because you always, and I tell them, please do not say that, because for me, busy is busy under Satan's yoke, the acronym. So I don't like to be considered that way. But however, I often want to really, really give people that time, including my dear Rib.
Please allow me to say again, I'm not against what Shirley said and what you all have contributed thus far. But I'm saying that this thing called, you want to call it wisdom, I'm not saying we should be a walkover and we should be polite and act as though we are foolish. No, I'm not implying that. That's why I said every case is different. And if you look at some illustrations from the Bible, look at the Lord Jesus when he met the woman at the well. He was very tactful. You see that one? He was very tactful. If you look again at, you call it wisdom, you call it tact, but it means that what is to be applied in the proper situation. So you don't make the person, you don't hurt them so much that they want to end the conversation and move on from your company. But you might bring out your point in such a way that when you do, they simply smile and they acknowledge you were wrong, and you go forward, because the point is going forward, right? And you look at another illustration where when the Lord rose from the dead, and the day after he rose, he was taking the 7-mile walk on the Emmaus Road. Remember that? And the two guys were walking. And Jesus came and he joined them, but he did not reveal who he was. I'm making a point. He did not reveal who he was. So they were telling him that, don't you know all these things that took place here? Who are you, a stranger in this area? The point I want to make there is Jesus, if you read it, you see this was said, what things? Jesus, who went through 3 nights of a trial, was beaten, crucified, died, rose from the dead. They asked him, are you a stranger? And Jesus simply acted as though what he was speaking about. There was a reason he did that. He used tact, wisdom. To draw them to himself, he used wisdom. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for taking time to share, even as you gave insight about how you look at handling these challenging situations. This is what I love about having the groups on and having different persons, because we get this range of feedback and approaches that we here in the panel and those viewing live can really pull from and look at how we could take from different ones to make and build ourselves to be even better. And I want to take a moment to share some views again. We have Paula shared, letting us know that the chapter helped her to challenge herself and take a deeper look at how she approaches her personal relationships. And I'm really glad you said that, Paula, because I know in the context of the convo so far, we've talked a lot about clients, business, work related. So I'm so glad you mentioned really internalizing it in the context of personal relationships as well. And Paula continues, as she says, especially family members and close friends. Since familiarity tends to breed contempt, we should always be on guard since it can affect relationships. Thank you for sharing that, Paula. And just to highlight one more, yeah, hi, Simone. Good night. Simone says, good night, Uncommon Achievers. The reward for good work is more work. I love it. Consideration must be given to a person's responsibilities. Simone, you're reading my mind because I was coming to that next. Yes. Consideration must be given to a person's responsibilities and time before looking to add to their plate. I manage my time by politely and graciously declining rather than being overloaded and giving less than my best. And, I really want to connect what Simone is saying here to even Shirley's contribution about being a person of your word. Because part of being a person of your word is really being able to be true to self, to recognize, can I not? Can I accommodate? Would I be able to fulfill what the commitment that I'm about to make? So as much as we could take a look here to say we want to stay aware of the unspoken agenda of others, we too have to be introspective about how we function both in our personal and our professional relationships. But as I always do, I want to open the floor because, there's so much we could pull out of the different chapters that it's always great when I could get you all to take lead. So, Roel, can I volunteer you to take lead? Is there anything you want to wind down or wind up based on our readings in this chapter?
Well, I like the pivot to the personal relationships, and I would imagine that is a little bit more challenging, because earlier was it Paula that mentioned that familiarity, can become a little issue in personal relationships, and we could tend to take people around us for granted, their time and their effort. So if you get accustomed doing something in a family, whether you're sweeping or cooking or going for the groceries or whatever it is you're doing, after a while it becomes like, yeah, that's your job, you do that. And we forget, you understand, the time and the effort, that it requires. So I think one of the antidotes for that is to always be thankful, you understand, always compliment, always consider that we don't have to do anything, you understand? In a relationship, we don't have to do it. We do it out of love, we do it out of commitment, we do it because we want to make a contribution. But I think each party has to remember to be thankful. And I think we need to do this daily, not at birthdays or anniversaries. Every day We should find a way to share an appreciation for something that somebody does. It might be okay, they brought the slipper for you when you're coming off the bed. Take some time and say, don't grunt and say, well, where the slip, where my slipper? You understand? Appreciate them for
Yes.
that. Maybe it was a meal they cooked. Maybe it's something that they did in the yard that they cleaned up. Learn to be appreciative every day as often as we can. I think that's really the antidote, as often as we can, in every way that we
Yes.
can. Look for ways to appreciate individuals for the time that they take to invest in our relationships. And in that way, we can avoid the issue that Mike Murdock is talking about in the chapter.
Definitely, thank you. And it doesn't even have to be for the big bang, because many a night when I come off here, because guys, we 31 chapters, meaning we're going for 31 days. So when I get off the live and I come off, have to go and say, honey, thank you so much for
Yes,
being patient with me.
yes,
Because
yes,
I'm disappearing for an hour and a half every night. I have to go and say, honey, thank you so much for not fussing that I'm online for an hour and a half every night.
yes,
And I have to say thanks, because
yes.
he could be feeling left out, right? Because I'm on
Even
the
when they
screen
say,
for an hour and
Alina,
a half.
even when they say, okay, that's all right, that's no problem, even when they say that,
Yes.
still
I
show
still have
them
to
the
say, honey, thank you
appreciation.
Yes.
so much for being understanding. So, yes, it doesn't even have to be the big bang. It could be the little things, whether it's just to say thank you for, just the patience, the understanding. Or as we all say, thanks for the slippers, or taking out the sada roti dough to thaw so we could cook later. Whatever it is, we learn to be appreciative. Varun, let me volunteer you. What are your closing thoughts as you consider all that we've chatted about for the evening?
Well, I would like to talk a little more about the role was saying just now, right? And just a little thing I wanted to mention that what I've noticed, not from experience, but hearing other people talking, that people in relationship after a certain time period, they would stop being appreciative of what the other partner is doing. So like how you was mentioning that, with the slipper situation and they'll thank you and all these different things. Some people think that the significant other is supposed to do these things
Yes,
without showing a sense of appreciation. And hearing from other people's stories, it tends to affect them emotionally. They don't feel appreciative. Sometimes they feel lonely. So, like what you were saying just now, that is it's always good to show appreciation. May it be your wife, your brother, your sister, your daughter, your son, whoever it may be. Always give them that sense of appreciation to make them feel better and be lifted in the everyday daily life. And this helps a lot of people um, have a good day, have a good night, have a good time. Because some people might have issues in work, some people might have issues in the business. But when they come home and they meet a significant other or family member and they get that sense of appreciation, it just uplifts their whole mood and makes everything
yes,
so much more lighter and so much more better.
yes.
So that is my little 2 cents about this.
And thank you so much for sharing that. Because, even as you all were talking about personal relationships, maybe about a week or two ago, my husband and I were talking about, when we was, in primary school and thing, and we talking and telling stories and whatnot. And I suddenly remembered that I skipped standard two. I forgot I skipped standard two, so we were talking about it, and because we were remembering who teacher we had for what, and I was like, no, I skipped standard two. They sent me up to standard three, and I suddenly pulled back because just in my role as an educator now, I was saying to him, it is so odd. You don't hear about children skipping classes and thing again, but I skipped standard two, and it was quite normal, back when I was in primary school. But the point I was making to him, I was saying, I never thought about it before, but it's interesting. When I was standard one, I came third in test. And I skipped standard two. And when I went in standard three, I came third in tests. And I said, look at that. I skipped a whole academic year and my grades didn't drop at all. And I said to him, my mother must have been really smart, because so many parents struggle to keep their children when they go through the normal progression of one academic level to another. And yet somehow my mother kept me intact, that I'm going through infant to standard one, skip a class, go up to standard three with the bigger kids, and my grades stayed intact. And you know what I did? The next day I picked up my phone and I said, Mommy, I see, I never realized how smart you are. I was just thinking, and she started to laugh. Girl, what you calling to tell me this already day? But I use that example to show giving appreciation isn't only about the spousal relationship, because sometimes we could kind of focus on that, but it could be about any relationship. That whether it's, for those of us who are fortunate to still have our parents with us, whether we go down memory lane and we say, I remember this and I so glad you did that for me, eh? Or whether we're talking about our siblings, our cousin, whoever, appreciation, gratitude can be extended across the board. It doesn't have to be limited. Or I have a routine. I'll tell you real quick. I have a cousin, I call her every Sunday. And I call her every Sunday just to say, hey girl, how you going? Because I want to let her know she's important to me. So I ain't calling to ask you nothing. I just want to say how you going and how your husband. All right, nice. We're going to talk next week, because we're finding ways to make sure that we are having good agenda towards. So when we sow, we could reap those positive benefits of relationships. Mr. and Mrs. Matthias. So I feel so happy that we have a couple on the inside. They only break record for book club conversation. First time we have to do a couples edition, one of these conversations. I'm loving it, guys. Let me focusing on you. What addition, subtraction, complementary point would you like to share with us and those viewing live as we wind down on this evening's convo?
Thank you so much, Alina. Again, thank you so much, Raul and Varun as well, for your contributions too, because, as you were speaking, what came to my mind is capture the moments, and especially relating to family, because time can be lost. You can't get it back. So capturing the moment is really important. What stood out again for me, and I'm closing here, how, Mike Murdock said he was really rushing to get that flight because he would get home at 1 a.m. And, he did express that, and how much it was overlooked. And it made an impact on him, and truly, as someone that fears God, that really said to me, Shirley, be able to listen when people speak, and really appreciate their time and not trivialize it because you have to get your way. So be sensitive about that. Be mindful of others, because just as my time is important, their time is also important. So keep that sensitivity there. That's my final contribution.
There's a saying, there is more hunger for love and appreciation in this world than there is for bread. And I will leave that as my final statement. I'll repeat it. There is more hunger in this world for love and appreciation than there is for food. Read between the lines.
Thank you, guys. I'm so appreciative to have had all of you in with us for book club conversation this evening. Thank you so much for joining in. Achievers in the comment section, I think we have one more comment to share where Paula said to us, let's create a culture of appreciation. I think we could all agree on that. Let us create a culture of appreciation. I was just going to say that. Yes, so Paula, you gave the benediction this evening, girl. Let us create a culture of appreciation. So, guys, it was great. Achievers who were with us live, it was great. Thank you so
Alina,
much for
wait,
joining.
wait,
Yes,
wait.
talk to
Before
me.
you go,
Tell me.
Varun, I appreciate you and the time you spent today.
Yes,
David, I
you can write
appreciate
one
the
movie,
time that you
yes.
took. Shirley, I
It's
appreciate the
okay.
time. Alina, I appreciate the time that you took to organize all this thing every
Yes.
day,
Thumbs
day
up.
in, day out. Excellence, star
Yeah.
performance. I
Yeah. Yeah.
appreciate you all. All the listeners, I don't know all the names. I know I heard Simone, I heard Paula. I appreciate you all.
Yes.
That's on
Thank
behalf of
you.
all of us. The role is speaking on behalf of all of us.
We
We
appreciate you.
appreciate.
We love it. So thank you everyone involved. We are appreciating each other tonight and every other night. We are appreciative. It's an honor to be here, to be in conversation in the panel, and to have those of you viewing live jump in the comment section. Those of you who do, and share your thoughts. And until tomorrow, when we continue with chapter 29, have a great night, guys, as we continue on our journey to being that uncommon achiever. Take care.
Yeah, take care.